Hey everyone, this is Chase Bethea, and today I'm going to talk to you about something that is very interesting to me. And I came across it during a LinkedIn tag, whereas in someone wanted me to pitch for a game, and it reminded me of two instances of something. So I want to kind of go through this process and point this out. And it's also going to kind of tie into the Sony not having physical disc anymore. So I did a little bit of curiosity and I want to get some thoughts and probably some other perspectives as possible. So I'm going to read some of these things that I'm thinking about. And here's one example. So on the sheet, it was asked for during this pitch. It said, our budget maximum is $400 US per finished minute with full ownership of the music. Is this workable for you? Now, as you can see, when I was filling this out, initially for a couple days, I was thinking, no, I've been through this before. I don't know why these small studios want full ownership of the music. And because this does not allow for the composer to perform it or gain any soundtrack royalties or anything like that. And with $400 per finished minute, that's actually under the standard of the industry. And I'm going to show the facts of this thanks to a specific survey that happens every year through many people who put into this information of their own experiences around the world. And so I'm a bit curious. So depending on the scope is one thing because they were saying that it's close to 30 minutes of music. So I did the math, and if it's about 30 minutes of music and it's $400 per finished minute, nice chunk of change. Times are the economy is different. Times are difficult right now, and so you could justify that depending on where you are in your career. But I do recall in 2024 this same thing happening to me with a different studio. So I have the screenshots from the email. I'm not going to be releasing any type of names or anything of that sort just for privacy purposes. But when I take a look at this, so studio reached out to me. They really wanted to work with me. They commissioned me for a demo. It was for a specific game that was coming out, I think in sometime last year, quarter 2. And so they said, I adjusted the quote for that. And then this was mostly their response. They said, so happy to hear you're interested in working together and can flex the quote a bit. One contract for the whole project on a track by track basis would work best for us. So let me know what you think of that idea. It would basically be treating each track as a milestone with its own flat fee around $350 to $400 range. Now, again, just for some context, well, we're going to get into some of the details, so I'm going to save that. I want I want this to feel good for you, so feel free to let me know if you're uncomfortable with anything. And we also want to accommodate. Okay, so this was early in the email. They were very open to working with me. They reached out to me. I did not pitch nothing like that. And some of the questions that they had asked was feedback iterations, how much do they include for a track? There's a list of things to be composed, what I prefer to decide which ones to be worked out on, what information is most helpful for our team to provide to me when requesting a track. So the next follow-up was some of the other details. Will there be a definite 30 tracks needed? If not, what's the maximum appropriate round of range? This was my response. So, will there be a definite 30 tracks needed? Because if it was 350 to 400, that's a little over, it was like around $18,000 or so. And there was a minimum paying of $650 per minute with a bonus. Could they clarify that the bonus would be from game sales, soundtrack sales, or both? Also, what would be the gross sales, and when will this be paid, monthly or quarterly? Could they please clarify the number after which the bonus would be able to come in? And once which is sales type is clarified, what is the percentage? Is it 5% for soundtrack sales, 10%, 15, or 20%? If the percentage of soundtrack sales was to happen between the studio and me, what would be the split? Would it be 60-40, 70-30, 50-50? Could they please verify a comfortable cap number of years to stop receiving royalties? For example, they can only receive royalties after an 8-year cap. Again, I don't really know the reason why small studios would do this. It makes sense that Microsoft or Sony would do these type of deals. but I don't know why small studios would do this. So I'm trying to figure that out. And someone, please let me know if you know the answer, because I'm trying to figure that perspective. And question number 7 was, if there is not a year cap that can be estimated, is there a number cap? Alternatively, is there an option to determine the year cap or the number, which one comes first? So if they didn't have me receiving royalties in a cap year, is there an estimated other number or something that would be flexible? These are the questions that I asked them. So their response was, they approach assigning tracks with via batches with separate contracts. So each batch will have to be 10 to 11 tracks for a total of 21 tracks. The initial contract would encompass one batch to start containing 10 tracks.
It's not enough. I need more.
Okay, so if we go back to question 1, I asked, will there be a definite 30 tracks needed, and what's the minimum maximum of the amount range? So instead of 30 tracks, it's now 21 tracks in a batch form. Not sure why they did it that way, but that's how they wanted it. So I asked, question 2, was the payment for $6.50 per minute a bonus? Could they clarify what was game sales, soundtrack sales, or both? Will it be paid monthly, quarterly? Could they clarify the number after which that bonus will come in? They conflated 2, 3, 4, and 5. So once clarified which sales it is, game sales, what's the percentage? If the percentage of sales was split, 60-40. So they said the bonus will be a one-time flat fee of $150 per finished minute music once 3,000 copies of the OST were sold.
What?
Didn't really answer my question because it didn't tell the percentage. It just says the amount of copies that are sold. And it didn't say what the percentage split would be. It just says that so that's how they decided that they were going to answer the question. Very odd, but that's what they did. And can they please verify the comfortable cap number of years? Remember, I'd asked that question. It said, unfortunately, they don't have the bandwidth to offer royalties at any duration at this time. This was the big Toledo Bowl. And if you're not familiar, my book that's coming out August 14th, you can pre-order it now. The Toledo Bowl refers to when you are a matador and you have the red cape and a bull's coming your way. Some people say the red flags, but this means red flag is one thing, but if a bull's coming your way with a red cape, that means you get the hell out of there. So it's a big Toledo Bowl. You don't have the bandwidth to offer royalties for any duration at this time, but you want to give me a bonus of $6.50 per finished minute for a contract that's done once 3,000 copies are sold. So that's kind of like a royalty in a way. Royalty bonus, kind of. Didn't make sense to me. Let me know if it makes sense to y'all. So I believe that was, so the next follow-up was for them to clarify that. And they said if there's 21 minutes of music for the OT, then once the 3,000 units are sold, a bonus $150 per finished minute will be distributed to the composer for the 20 minutes of completed work. So then it also sounds like they didn't have the budget to pay me in the first place, which is kind of odd too, now that I read this again 2 or 3 years later. So then this addition of $6.50 minute range paid up front. So what am I getting at? Okay, so remember how I was saying that the $300 to $400 range is typically like kind of under? This is the GameSoundCon Game Audio Industry Survey 2025. They do this every year. I'm going to read exactly specifically what it's about. One of the most referenced surveys of its kind in the video game industry, providing data on game music, on sound trends, technology, and more. The 2025 survey ran from May 1st through June 15th of 2025. 654 people responded to the survey, including 731 game audio professionals across all genres and studio sizes. This year's survey included new questions on industry layoffs and artificial intelligence and game audio, how long it takes post-graduation for new hires to find a job, and look at some trends we have seen since we started the survey in 2014. So it covers the breadth of small indie studios to giant, wow, okay, quad A games. I'm not sure if that's a typo or if they really mean that, because here we have AAA. On typical AAA titles are games such as Forza, Call of Duty, or Destiny. Mid-core games, which are AAA games. Mid-core is like Zynga, Plants vs. Zombies, Candy Crush, etc. Indie games, Self-published, developed with a team size ranging from 1 to 2, around 20. Sometimes published by indie game publisher. I'm not going to get into the details of this, but this is must be specific of this, right? So we're trying to focus on what is the proper rate per finished minute. And let's just go to freelance composer rates because that was the topic that's going on because we're not at a studio for any salaries. So freelance per minute composer rates have inched up over the previous years. And then the other bullet point average AAA rate is 1871 per finished minute. Again, I will say 1871 per finished minute. That doesn't include the prestige of the composer, if they've won multiple awards, what type of awards they've won, etc., their catalog, their production, their availability. So that's what it says average. So let's jump to the composer rates. What do freelance game composers charge? Although an imperfect way to quote the game composing per minute of completed music remains a popular way of charging the game music composition. Among indie freelance game composers, 55% they charge by the minute. Okay, I'm going to just focus on the indie. Midcore, I could say midcore as well, 51% they charge by the minute as well. Everyone is charging by the per finished minute. So that's the standard across. Here we are. Composition rates vary widely by game size scope. AAA is 1,000, 2,000, 3,600 per finished minute. Rates up to 5,000 per finished minute. Wow. When I came into the industry, I remember it was 18 to 1,500 to 2,000 per finished minute, but it makes sense to the inflation. I'm glad who's ever getting this. I'm very glad. Okay, mid-core games, interesting. Common rate was 400. That must be based off of what the studios are asking for. But if they're okay, this is interesting. Mid-core games 1,200. This is what 1,200 to 1,600. Average is 998. 8% increase over 2023. Median 67% of 2023. So for indie games, common rate was 400. This went down because it used to be 500 minimum. See, yeah, median decreased percent over 2023. The average is 618, which for indie games it makes sense. I mean, they don't have a lot of budgets, big budget stuff. But mid-core, so let's go back up to the definition of mid-core. Smaller scale than AAA, developed medium to large companies, not always casual games, but they're published by Zynga, so they're considered mid-core. All right, well, there's the answer. So we have at least solidified that it's fair in that regard. But like I said, it depends on the availability, the prestige, status of the freelance composer that they are contracting. So I'm wondering, now with this going to be going away in 2028, and you can see the hoopla from some of these channels. Go check out Level 1 Gaming. Check them out for their overview of it, and also Angry Joe. This is something to be considered, and I'm going to explain why. Alan Wake released on Xbox 360, and then years later decided to do the remaster. When they did that, the music was no longer eligible for the license, so they had a discrepancy to deal with, and the music that was shipped on the Xbox 360 is not the same for the remaster because it no longer was, they didn't have a proper license to do it, and if they did, it would have been copyright and it would have been sued. It would have been a big deal. So I'm wondering if studios don't want to deal with that, but the wording in this is still not correct for them to have the ownership about it. And to do the things that I do as a video game composer, which is not even just write game loops, but dynamically change it between changing items to combat systems to environmental world changes to start screen menu in betweens, anything and everything you can think of in game mechanics, I'm able to do it. So I'm wondering if they're trying to avoid that for the future and just cover themselves. And I think that's the answer, but I have a feeling there's something more. So if you happen to know, let me know. I also dive more into what this whole process was with that studio in terms of that back and forth, the correspondence of the wording they had in my book. Like I said, is coming out August 14th. It's called Student of the Game, How I've Navigated the Video Game Industry the Past Decade. Check it out. Enjoy. And let me know what you think. I will be updating this mostly from my website here forward. I'll see you later.